You can see. Okay. Rabbi side, so thank you for Amram for asking to come in and say some words on the Hagadah. I think that's the topic. Is that the topic? So maybe Be'ez Hashem will try to say some words, some ideas on the Hagadah, and maybe with your permission, Pesach in general. So if we can start off with that, okay, Hagadah, the Chodesh Nisan, and to the month of Pesach, we'll go to Shabbos Hagadah, and then Mitzvah Hashem will continue and build up to say the night Be'ez Hashem, the Siyata Gishmai. So Chodesh Nisan. Chodesh Nisan is brought Masechah Soifrim, the Machabed Paskins like this, that we don't say Hachanan in the whole Chodesh Nisan. We don't say anything. We don't say Titchascha, no Hespedim, etc. So the Shulchan Aruch, when he brings it down, as brought Masechah Soifrim, is that the whole month, so to speak, is like a little bit of a Yom Tov. The entire month has, so to speak, a little bit Kedusha of a Yom Tov. And I want to quote you what it says in Masechah Soifrim. I don't normally quote, but sometimes it's so powerful, I just want to read out the words of Masechah Soifrim. He writes the following: V'chein la'asid lava in the future. Asid hamikdash li'yibanos b'Nisan. The base hamikdash is going to be built in Nisan. L'kayim mashanema. In order to establish what the pasuk says, ein kol chodosh tachas hashamash. The pasuk says there's nothing new under the sun. Basically, to translate the pasuk, history just repeats itself. You take out the newspaper, you open the news repeats itself. There's different names and different figures, and maybe different branches, but history repeats itself. Just like the first Geula happened in Chodesh Nisan, the future Geula is going to take place in Chodesh Nisan. Lefichach einam tachanim kol yimei Nisan. The reason why we don't say tachanim in the whole Chodesh Nisan is because this is the month that the Beis HaMikdash is going to be rebuilt in. And it's not just the day, the Yom Tov of Pesach we're celebrating, but it's the entire month kuloi b'chloi v'atzmoi that's got Kedusha to it. Now, there's something mamish amazing. There's actually machlokes in the Gemara, in Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua, as to when the world was created. It's a machlokes. Rabbi Lezer holds that the world was created in Tishrei. Rabbi Yeshua holds the world was created in Nisan. This is a machlokes in the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, and the Ram brings it down in Paskins. We hold like Rabbi Yeshua, that the world was created in Nisan. The Mishnah continues in Rosh Hashanah and says the following: according to Rabbi Lezer, that the world was created in Tishrei, the Geula is going to take place in Tishrei. According to Rabbi Yeshua, that the world was created in Nisan, the Geula is going to take place in Chodesh Nisan. Meaning, whenever you hold the world was created, that's when the Geula is going to come. So if you hold the world was created in Tishrei, the Geula is going to come in Tishrei. If you hold that the world was created in Nisan, the Geula is going to come in Nisan. Whenever you hold the world was created, that is when the Geula is going to come. There's a fascinating Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara says the following: there was a non-Jew. The non-Jew came to Shammai and said, I want you to convert me. And he said to Shammai, how many Toras are there? Shammai said there's 2 Toras. Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebalpeh. He said to Shammai, convert me on condition you teach me 2 Toras. He said to him, no, I'm not converting you. And he left. He came to Hillel and said to Hillel, how many Toras are there? Hillel said there's 2. There's Torah Shebechsav and there's Torah Shebalpeh. He said to him, teach me Torah. So Hillel said, fine. So Hillel said, you've got to know there's 2 Toras. The non-Jew said, I trust you that there's the written law, but I don't trust you about the oral law. I only trust the written. I trust the Bible, I don't trust the oral law. So Hillel said, fine, you play the following trick. Hillel said, I'm willing to teach you the written law. He came in one morning and Hillel taught him Aleph and Beis. He said, come back tomorrow, we'll continue. The non-Jew came back tomorrow and Hillel turned the letters around. Hillel started to teach him Tov and Shin. So the non-Jew said to Hillel, yesterday you told me that the letters go Aleph Beis. Now you're flipping around. What is it? Hillel said to him, you only know that it starts Aleph Beis because of me. You're trusting me, correct? Well, if you trust me the first 2 letters are Aleph and Beis, you've got to trust me when I tell you anything. And that was his proof to him there's something called Torah Shebalpeh. Because how do you know Torah Shebechsav is Aleph and Beis? How do you know to pronounce the first A and the second letter Beis? How do you know? It must be we have a tradition how to say over these letters. If you're trusting me the first 2 letters but Aleph and Beis, that's how to pronounce it, well, you've got to trust me also everything I tell you. That's his proof in something called Torah Shebalpeh. Lovely. So I'm using a lot of the Sefer Magadah Akiyah from about the Neil Glatz in America, who says some fascinating insights. What was Hillel really saying to the guy? There's something much deeper than just tricking him in flipping the letters around. The Vilna Gaon in Mishlei says what you say. This is what the Vilna Gaon teaches us in Mishlei. The letters, as they read in order, Aleph, Beis, Gimel, and Dalet, represents Torah Shebechsav. That represents the written law. That also represents Midas Harachamim. We have to just accept these historians brought down to us from Rabbi Hakadmon. The letters in order, Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, represent Torah Shebechsav, and it also represents Midas Harachamim. The letters, when they come backwards, Taf, and then a Shin, and then a Resh, and then a Kuf, represent Torah Sheba'al Peh, and it represents Midas Hadin. It represents the strict judgment, and also represents the oral law. The letters going in order represent Torah Shebechsav, the written law, and it represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu's attributes of divine mercy. We have to accept these Yesodis brought down to us by the Vilna Gaon and Rabbi Hakadmonim HaRishonim V'Acharonim. If we accept that Yesodis, there's something very special going on over here, and a very special insight like the Shabbat. So Machlekes, as you said, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shmuel, as to when the world, Rabbi Yeshua, when the world was created. Rabbi Eliezer said the world was created in Tishrei. Rabbi Yeshua says the world was created in Nisan. What's the machlekes going on over here between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua? Let's make the following question. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeemed us from Golos Mitzrayim, were we deserving of it, or were we not deserving of it? Let's say, for example, Pesach and Shavuos. Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, let's look at all three. Did we do something in Sukkot and Shavuos to be deserving? The Meshech Chochmah brings the following measure. The Meshech Chochmah brings the medrash that HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls us Biti, Achoisi, and Imi. My daughter, my sister, my mother. The Meshech Chochmah explains that these three relatives correspond to the Shalosh Regalim. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu called us a daughter, that was talking about Pesach. Why? A daughter receives. A daughter doesn't do anything to deserve. You give something to a little baby, the baby isn't deserving. The baby didn't do something to warrant the parents' blessings and presents. The baby receives. Says the Meshech Chochmah, in Pesach we received. It was a matnas chinam. We were not deserving to be nigal from Mitzrayim. Why? Halelu of the Avodah Zarah, the Halelu of the Avodah Zarah. We were serving Avodah Zarah, and so were the Mitzvah serving Avodah Zarah. We were the 49th level of Tumah. We didn't do anything in order that we should be reciprocals of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's blessings. We did two things. We did Dam Pesach and Dam Milah. But that doesn't count so much, because that we were commanded to do. But from our own free will, we didn't do anything. It comes out that the Pesach festival is considered bitty. We're not deserving. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a present at Pesach and took us out of Mitzrayim. We were undeserving. Then there's Achosi. What's the relationship between siblings? Each one gives to the other. Fine, very nice. That's Shavuos, says the Meshech Chochmah. Why is Shavuos considered like Achosi, like a sister? Each one gives to the other. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah, but we did something. What do? We said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Nasa v'nishma. It wasn't a matnas chinam. It wasn't a present. We said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whatever you tell us to do, we're going to do. Shavuos is like a sister. Relatives, siblings, each one gives to the other. But Sukkot is a much higher level. Because Sukkot is like a mother. A mother gives. A mother constantly giving. A mother doesn't receive from children necessarily. A mother gives. That's Sukkot. Sukkot, we did something. What do we do in Sukkot? We did the most unbelievable avodah. In order for the Amon HaKavod to return, they didn't just come back. We had Aseret Mitzvah. We had Yom Kippur. We had Vidui. We built the Mishkan. Only when the Jewish people got together and started to build the Mishkan, then the Amon HaKavod returned. And then we have the beautiful Yom Tov of Sukkot. But it comes out, Sukkot, we did something. We did Shavah on Yom Kippur. There was a serious to Shavah. We did something. We contributed and eventually started to build the Mishkan. Shavuos was Asan HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem gave us the Torah, and we said Nasa v'nishma. But Pesach, we didn't do anything. Pesach, it was the definitive of undeserving. It comes out that in the month of Nisan, do you know what we're celebrating? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu opens the Sha'arei Rachamim and gives even those who are undeserving. I want to read you out something special that's brought in the Hagadah of Rav Rosenfeld. Rav Rosenfeld writes in his Hagadah the following. He says, "V'lachein," and therefore, a person has to understand that during Seder night, when a person's doing the avodah, the gates of heaven and the gates of mercy are open. Because even a person that's undeserving will be zoicha to brachas and rachamim, right? Because Ramchal tells us that when we celebrate a Yom Tov, we aren't just recalling history. We're not just remembering a historical event, but rather we are reliving. writes the Ramchal, and any any light that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Jewish people once upon a time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives it to us again, during that regal. It's Yisrael added to know. That's why, for example, the Mefarshim explained the Kavayosha. One of the most powerful days in the whole year for Tefillah is Tanis Esther says the Kavayosha. Why? Because that was the day that the Jewish people got together and davened and HaKadosh Baruch Hu listened. If that once upon a time was a time where HaKadosh Baruch Hu listened to Tefillah, so too nowadays. Why is Yom Kippur on the 10th of Tishrei? What happened on the 10th of Tishrei? Moshe Rabbeinu pleaded to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to please forgive the Jewish people. You know HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Vayama Hashem, Salachti Kidvarecha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I forgive you. Seeing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgave Klal Yisrael on the 10th of Tishrei, that day forever and eternity is considered a day where the Jewish people are able to receive an abundance of tshuva greater than any other day in the calendar year. It comes out, Pesach is a time where we're receiving, even though we are undeserving. We said the Machlokes Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shua, let's go back to that. Rabbi Shua holds the world was created in Nisan, and therefore was destined to be redeemed in Nisan. We said that the letters in order, Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, is Torah Shabbat, which is Midas HaRachamim. The letters back to front, Tov, Shin, Reish, is considered Torah Sheba'al Peh, and it's Midas Hadin. Explain the Mefarshim something incredible. The first word of the Torah is Bereshis. The Mekubalim bring down that Bereshis stands for Beis Rashis. There were two beginnings. Because we have a rule that any time a rabbi appears in the Gemara and says something, even though there is a machlokes, we have a rule. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. Says Tosfos in Rosh Hashanah. Both opinions as to when the world was created is correct. How can that be? How can you have both opinions as to when the world was created is correct? Says Tosfos in Rosh Hashanah the following Rishem Rabbeinu Tam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to make the world in Tishrei, but he ended up making the world in Nisan. What does that mean? Says Rashi in Parshas Bereshis. Allah b'machshava livroisoi b'midas hadin. HaKadosh Baruch Hu originally wanted to create the world in midas hadin, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw the world will have no continuity if there's only din. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu was meshachet with midas harachamim. Says Rabbeinu Tam in Rosh Hashanah, Hashem wanted to make the world in Tishrei, but ended up making it in Nisan, because Tishrei is the month where we did something. There's midas hadin in Tishrei. What's the biggest proof that Tishrei is the month of midas hadin? That's Yimei Hadin. This is Rosh Hashanah. This is Yom Kippur. The days of judgment are in Tishrei. If you take the word Bereshis, there's something amazing if you rearrange the letters. If you rearrange the letters Bereshis, do you know what it will spell? It will spell Tishrei. Tishrei is in Bereshis. If you keep going, you take away the top 10 ratio, do you know what you'll have? Aleph and Beis. What does the Torah call the month of Nisan? Chodesh Ha'aleph. The word Bereshis is comprised of Tishrei and Aleph Beis. Tishrei, because there were two times HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. Hashem created the world in Tishrei, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu also created the world in Nisan. The difference between the two is Nisan is a time of Rachamim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives. Tishrei is a time we have to do something. It comes out then, the Kedusha in the month of Nisan and Pesach. There's the most unbelievable shepherd and growth that comes down in the month of Nisan and the Befrat on the night of Leil HaSeder. And even a person that isn't worthy, even a person that shouldn't really be deserving of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's brachas is able to get it. One can tap into that in Dafka the Chodesh Nisan of Aleph and Beis. Now we understand that Nisan is Ovid. What's Aleph and Beis? Torah Shabbat, Midas HaRachamim. If you go back, Tov Shin Reish Yud, that's Torah Shabbat. That's Midas Hadin. Going back to the story of Hillel. Now we'll understand the depth of Hillel. Hillel wasn't just doing a nice trick to the Ger, saying one day Aleph Beis and the other day Tov Shin. The Ger said to Hillel, how many Torahs are there? Hillel said it's Torah Shabbat and it's Torah Shabbat Peh. When the Ger came on day one, he told him Aleph and Beis. You know why he told him Aleph and Beis? That's Torah Shabbat. He came to him the next day. He told him Tov Shin. It's Tov Shin. It's Torah Shabbat Peh. In brackets, those are a little spice in addition to this. One of the ways to darshan out the Torah is atbash. I don't want to get too confusing, that you can take the first letter and switch it with the last letter. You can take the second letter and switch it with the second last letter. That's because Torah Shabbat and Torah Shabbat are parallel each other. You can change the aleph to the top and the base to the shin, and you can keep going like that. Therefore, says the Yoni something amazing. What's the difference between what we've done for in Pesach and what we've done for in Sukkot? We changed the tefillahs in Pesach and Sukkot. What did we start to done for in Pesach? Pesach, we started davening for Tal. Sukkot, we started davening for Geshem, for rain. What's the difference between rain, Geshem, and Tal and Jew? Says the Yoni we learned in primary school and high school. What is rain? Rain doesn't just come. We have to daven hard for rain. Why do you have to daven hard for rain? Because if the ground isn't moist, isn't wet, there'll be no evaporation, no condensation. The clouds will get the nutrients and H2O that's required. And therefore, the sun won't be down on the clouds because there won't be enough water within the clouds and the rain won't fall. But Tal, Jew always falls. It's called Asrusa dilatata and Asrusa dilatella. One is a person has to do something from below. One is you don't need to do anything when it comes. The difference between rain and dew is rain you have to do something from below. If the ground isn't moist from down here, the rain won't come from above. But dew, you don't need to do anything. As the Gemara says, dew always falls. That's, by the way, if you forget to say Mashporach and Hagadah, the Gemara says you need to repeat. Because rain sometimes comes, sometimes doesn't come. If you forget Moridatal, you don't need to repeat. Because dew never ceases. That's the reason why in Pesach we daven for dew. Because Pesach is a time where we're receiving. Even though we're not deserving of dew, even though we didn't do anything from below to receive it, the dew still comes. But in Tishrei is a time of judgment. Tishrei is a time that we have to do something in order to be deserving. You want rain? You've got to do something from below. If you don't do anything, then the rain is not going to come. It comes out unbelievable. That the month we're going to tap into and the day we're going to tap into, it's not just times of nice, of a spiritual high. It's times in which you receive HaKadosh Baruch Hu's bracha, even if a person is not deserving of such a bracha. And this will help us understand the following. What else do we do in the month of Nishan? Says the Gemara in Brachas in Haroyah. A person who goes out to the field and sees a tree, and the parents of Malavlavi, and he sees the fruits are budding, you make a special bracha. There's a special bracha that we make. And I want to tell you what the Aruch HaShulchan writes to explain this beautiful bracha. The Aruch HaShulchan says that once a year, and only once a year, can we make this bracha. What's the bracha? Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for making beautiful trees. What's the point of this bracha? There's general brachas haroyah. You see something beautiful, you make a bracha. For example, you see a beautiful landscape, you make a bracha. But there's no mitzvah once a year to go to a beautiful landscape to make the bracha. You don't go to Niagara Falls once a year to make the bracha. But here, once a year, a person should go to the field to make the bracha. What's the point of this? Says the Aruch HaShulchan and Reish Chavvot, and I'd like to read out to you, Bishras Khan. Listen to this. He says, even things that are unnecessary for a person to live, just like beautiful fruit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not need to make such beautiful fruit. The Bria, human beings can survive without such nice fruit. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu still made it. You don't make it on seeds. You don't make it on wheat. Because you need wheat to live. But you don't need beautiful fruits to live. Therefore, there's a special bracha. The ain bracha zu ela pamachas b'shana. The bracha zu he bracha shel hadayah klalios al chastoi v'tuva yisbarach. Says the Aruch HaShulchan and Reish Chavvot. This is a special bracha. It's not a bracha on the fruit. The bracha on the fruit is just a springboard. It's just to get us to realize that every single thing HaKadosh Baruch Hu does in the world, we have to be so grateful to him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't need to make such beautiful trees and such nice tasting fruit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it, says the bracha, "Kedei lehenas behem bnei adam," just for us. Nistan is the time when we open up our eyes to realizing and to seeing that even things we are undeserving of, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us. That's the depth in Berachas Ha'elanos. It's not just a cute bracha, but it's meant to remind us what month we're in. We're in a month and we're receiving things that we are undeserving for. That's another pshat. In why Shabbos HaGadol is called Shabbos HaGadol. All the Mefarshim ask, why is the Shabbos before Pesach called the big Shabbos? If there weren't to be, I always like to go this way round. And I teach the boys always like to go the following way round. Let's say, for example, there was no name for Shabbos before Pesach. I wanted to take a vote amongst Klal Yisrael. What should we call the Shabbos before Pesach? Out of what, 16 million Jews? How many would say the big Shabbos? I don't think we get more than 5. Why is the Shabbos before Pesach called the big Shabbos? This is the question that everyone asks. What happened on Shabbos HaGadol? 3,337 years ago, we left Mitzrayim. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu told the Jewish people on Rosh Chodesh that on the 10th of the month, you're going to take the Korban Pesach. The Jewish people took the Korban Pesach on the 10th of the month. Now he left Mitzrayim on the Thursday, which was Tesla of Nisan. So the 10th of the month, going back 5 days, 15 minus 5 is going to be the 10th, which was Shabbos. So on that Shabbos, what do? We took the Gedi, we took the Seh, we took the Korban Pesach, the lamb, and we told them, the mitzvah said, what are you doing? We said, this is our Korban Pesach. The mitzvah said, you think about Korban Pesach? Like you Shinei and chaos. They couldn't say anything because Klal Yisrael saw on that Shabbos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was with us. And the mitzvah started to see on that Shabbos, you are not going to be able to overtake the Jewish people. That's what happened on Shabbos HaGadol. But why is it called the Big Shabbos? To understand this, really, we have to define what does the term mean when it says the word Gadol? What does Gadol mean? So the Vilna Gaon says himself. He says the following. You take a Hasidim. We daven every single day the following. We say in the brachas of Shemona Esrei the following: Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibar, V'Hanoyer. Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibar, V'Hanoyer. Then we say Kel Elyon, Goyin Al Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zoicha Chastei Avos. Says the Vilna Gaon in his parish on the Siddur. Those 4 correspond to the 4. Let's go through it. Hakel corresponds to Kel Elyon. The Vilna Gaon says, don't try and understand it, you're not in. You can't understand what Kel means. Let's go to the next one. Hagadol. Says the Vilna Gaon, Hagadol corresponds to the next 4. So we've got, again, Hakel, Hagadah, Hagibar, V'Hanora, which corresponds to Kel Elyon, Goyin Al Chasadim Tovim, Konei Hakol, Zoicha Chastei Avos. It's some good to know whenever we daven. Hakel responds to Kel Elyon, we can't understand it. Hagadol. Says the Vilna Gaon, Hagadol corresponds to Goyin Al Chasadim Tovim. Do you know what it means to be big? Big doesn't mean big. Big means going out a sudden. You're able to give to somebody else. The sign of a great person, the sign of a big person, is a person who's able to give to somebody else. We see other examples of this. The Torah says, "Vayigdal Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu grew, Vayigdal ad ki gadal ma'od." Moshe Rabbeinu grew and became big. Says Rashi, it doesn't mean he became physically big. He became great. What does it mean to become great? Look at the next Rashi. You know what the next Rashi says? He went out to the field and he saw the pain of his brethren. You know what it means to be great? To be able for a person to expand themselves and see across their own borders, to see outside their Bahamas, to look at the pain of others. It says by Yitzchak, the Yitzchak became big. What did Yitzchak do when the pasuk says Yitzchak became big? You know what the pasuk says? He gave tzedakah, he gave ma'aseh. Whenever you see greatness and the word large being used in the Torah, it doesn't mean physically large. It means a person's able to give to others. When Moshe Rabbeinu pleaded to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be let into Eretz Yisrael, he said the following: you started to show your servants Es Godlacha, your greatness. Ve'et Yadcha HaChazaka, Asher Mikat B'Shamayim V'Ba'aretz, Asher Aseka Ma'asecha V'Chik B'Rasecha. Moshe pleaded to Hashem. Moshe said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you started to show your servant as Godlacha, your greatness. Says Rashi in Parashas Vayischanan. What does it mean as Godlacha? Says Rashi, Zu Midas Tuvcha. This is the midah of your goodness, that you are able to give and expand yourself to others. Now, by defining halachically what Gadol is, I think we'll be able to understand why the Shabbos before Pesach is called Shabbos HaGadol. We just learned that in the month of Nisan, there had never been a revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's blessings to a nation that was so undeserving. When did that start? The Shabbos before Pesach. The Shabbos before Pesach, the Jewish people should have had a panic attack. We've got to take the Seh, the Gedi. This is the fake God of the Mitzrayim, and we're going to look at them in their faces, us low servants, and tell the most powerful empire in the world, this is your God, and in 5 days' time, we're going to take a knife and we're going to chop its head off. There should have been a civil war at that point. The Medrash says there was, because the firstborn of the Jewish people started a civil war against the firstborn of the Mitzrayim, and the Jewish people won. That defies logic. The Jewish people should not have won that war. On the Shabbos before Pesach, you know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed the Jewish people, I'm here for you. I'm going to look after you. I'm going to protect you, and I'm going to save you. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu expanding himself. and giving himself above Chas v'Shalom his Abrahamus to others. Do you know why Shabbos of Pesach is called Shabbos HaGadol? Do you know what it means to be great? Greatness means you give to others. On that Shabbos, HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the first time decided, I'm giving to the people something they've never had before. And that was the simon. That in 5 days' time, you are going to leave this land. And you're going to leave Berechush Gadol. And the entire world are going to hear about this. That's why Shabbos before is called Shabbos HaGadol. Now that we've understood that, we'll start the Hagadah for a few minutes. Just introduction to the Hagadah. Is that okay? Now we'll just start with a few minutes, one idea about the Hagadah, and then we'll have to start again next week. So, something fascinating is that there's a rule in the Torah. The way something starts tells us about it. Also, the way something ends, tells us about it. For example, the Gemara says in Soitem Daf Yud, the Torah starts off with Gemilas Chasadim and ends with Gemilas Chasadim. That's what the Gemara says. How does the Torah start off? The Adam and Chava did not have any clothes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put clothes on them. That's Chesed. How does the Torah end? HaKadosh Baruch Hu buried Moshe. That's Chesed. It doesn't just mean this Gemara something cute. The Torah starts Chesed, the Torah ends Chesed. If the Torah starts with Chesed and ends with Chesed, you know what that means? The Torah is all about Chesed. So much so, when Shlomo HaMelech describes the Torah, what does Shlomo HaMelech say? The Torah is Chesed al Shayna. And Eshes Chayil. The Torah is called Torah's Chesed, which means if a person learns Torah and doesn't practice Chesed, it's not pshat. They learn Torah, if they don't practice Chesed, they're not even learning Torah. The Torah without Chesed is not Torah. The way something starts off and the way something ends, it's what it's all about. How does the Haggadah start off? It starts off really with, whenever we daven, and the whole Haggadah is all in Hebrew. There's one bit in the beginning that somehow crept its way into Aramaic. We say, Halach Mania, this is the bread of affliction, and we start to invite everyone to come inside. And we start to include everybody. And we say, L'shata hacha. Right now we're here, L'shana haba ba'arz Yisrael. We're going to be one day in Eretz Yisrael. L'shana abdin, L'shana haba b'nei chayrim. Right now we're here, we're in Goddess. But don't worry, it's only this year. Next year we'll be in Eretz Yisrael. Right now, very sadly, Avdi, we're servants. We're not really free people. But next year, don't worry, we'll be free people. The Haggadah starts off by telling us, right now we're slaves. In the future, don't worry, we're going to be free people. How does the Haggadah end? The Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim. Then we end Hagadah. Hagadah, Mefarshim will say it's talking about the Beis HaMikdash. Because Dizabin Abba Bishrei Zuzay. Many say Dizabin Abba was David HaMelech. Bishrei Zuzay, when he bought the Beis HaMikdash from Arabana, he gave him that amount of money. And we say it's all about the La'asad Lava, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, eventually, V'asa HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Shachat L'malach HaMaves. We're all going into the future. It comes out, we start off the Haggadah by tapping into the future. We end off the Haggadah by tapping into this future. This makes us think that there's something about this night. It's not just about the night, but rather it's all about the future. Let's give another example to this. The night that we're going to experience, the night that I say that, it's a weird night. Why is it such a weird night? I mean, for thousands of reasons. There's just one or two to bring up this the following. We do things on this night that we never do in any other night. In fact, we do things on this night that you're prohibited to do in other nights. When the Jewish people left Mitzrayim, there were two bloods. There was a Dam Pesach, and there was a Dam Milah. Now, the Mishnah says in the Gimel, and you can ask any non-Orthodox Jew, Bris Milah is only ever in the day. No one here has or ever will go to a Bris Milah at night. It's impossible. When the Jewish people left Mitzrayim, they did Bris Milah that night. So the question is, how can that be? One is not allowed to do Bris Milah at night. Second of all, on the night of the Seder, we say Halal. We say Halal at night. The Mishnah says in the Gil on Daf Chof, the same Mishnah. One is not allowed to say Halal at night. How can we say Halal at night? Question number 3. We split up the Halal into two. The first part of the Halal we say right in the end of Magid. Just before we're coming up to the bracha of the second kois, we start to say the first 2 paragraphs of Halal. Now we have a break. We have Rachta, Moitzi, Matzah, Mara, Kairav, Shulchan Aruch, Sof and Baruch, and then, like 2.5 hours later, we finish off the Halal. Something strange is going on tonight. Why do we split up the Halal? Another question. We ask, Ask the Vilna Gaon, do you know the depth of the question of Manishtana? Manishtana is not just why is this night different, but the Vilna Gaon explains Manishtana halayla hazeh mikol haleilos. Tonight it's different because we have a rule. If you think about it, you might be surprised by the following, but we basically never, ever do mitzvah that night. What mitzvahs do we do only at night? Sukkah's also in the day. Shema at night, Shema's in the day. We can list together right now thousands of mitzvahs you only do in the day. Thousands. Mitzvahs at night? Let's do one mitzvah we only do at night. So Kiddush Levana, we do Kiddush Levana at night, good, but that's for technical reasons. That's because the Gemara said, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that you can only make Kiddush Levana at a time where it's dark enough to get light from it. So that it's true, Mr. Dry, 100%, but that's a technical reason. The Torah doesn't say do it at night. The Torah just says you have to be able to get benefit from the light. That's one mitzvah we only do at night. So according to the Chaim, you can also do it in the day. So much so that everyone holds if you miss it at night and you say in the day, you're still in. The best time is at night, but if you do the Bahak holds, you make a bracha in the day. The Bahak holds, if you miss the bracha the night before, you can say the bracha in the day. Toras disagrees, but Toras holds if you say it in the day, even without the bracha, you're still in. So technically, you can say Sfras in the day. It's just better to do it at night.
There's something doctor that can only do it at
night. Yeah, misses in the day, hundreds. So this is the exception to the rule. Where is it? So the question is, why is it that this mitzvah is different to all the other mitzvahs? That's how the Vilna Gaon learns Manishtana. The Karban was in the day. Karban Pesach was done in the day. You can only do that, correct. But by Karbanos, you're right. The truth is, Karbanos, we have a rule that you're right. Karbanos is we eat it at night, but the Shechita is only ever done in the day. But 100% you're right. Says the Vilna Gaon, Manishtana halayla hazeh. Listen to this. Laila is masculine or feminine? Laila is feminine. Hazeh is masculine or feminine? Masculine. What should have said? Manishtana halayla hazeh. Doesn't make. You don't say halayla hazeh. It's incorrect dicta. You say Manishtana halayla hazeh. That the Vilna Gaon, something strange is going on tonight, because tonight is a night that really makes no sense, because you shouldn't be doing mitzvahs at night. Manishtana halayla hazeh. Why is this night different that we're doing mitzvahs tonight? We shouldn't be doing mitzvahs at night. We should be doing mitzvahs in the day. We've basically, no offense to anyone, myself included, failed to find a mitzvah that we only do at night. I think the reason is because I don't know if there is one. You only do it at night. Korbanos has different clothing. You're right. But not korban. We don't do mitzvahs at night, which makes us start to think that maybe there's something going on tonight that's different to all other nights. We'll start with the answer, and in the meantime, Hashem will continue this. Shavua Abba, Be'ezus Hashem. That night we did Pesach and we did Dam Lila, which you're not really allowed to do. So the Gemara says that Hagadah says a story of all the unbelievable Tanaim who were there by Rabbi Akiva, Yipsid of Bnei Brak, and they came and they told their Rabbi Yigir Zman Kriyas Shema Shel Shacharis. The time for Kriyas Shema of Shacharis has come. Ask the Arugas Aboisav and his Hagadah, and asks everybody what these great Tanaim did not understand, that the time for Kriyas Shema had come. How can that possibly be? We'll start with the Pesach and we'll continue this Be'ezus Hashem. The Chidah brings the Zohar Kadosh in Chelek Beis, who says that the night HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed the celestial bodies, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought out the sun, beaming so bright, like the hottest day in Tammuz. Says the Zohar Kadosh, the night that we left Mitzrayim was not a night. Or rather, the night that we left Mitzrayim was actually a day. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought the sun out Ketzkufas Tammuz, and that night was a day. You'll notice that whenever we have a Geula, the Geula is always represented by light. Always. Let's go through all the Goliaths we've had. Mitzrayim, as we're speaking out, we're going to see, we'll build on it next week, Be'ezus Hashem, is all about the light. HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed that day, that night into day. The second Goliath we had was Malchus Parasamadai by Esther. What's Esther called? Ayala Sasha. Esther, when she went into Achashverosh, said, Lamnatseach al Ayala Sasha Mizma David, Keli Lamazaptoni. Esther called the story and the miracle of Purim Ayala Sasha, which is the break of dawn. because there was a light. We could see clearly from the darkness of Haman, who tried to impose sanctions and death upon us. Esther brought Ayeles Hashachar. The Geula of Purim is called light. The third Golos winter was Golos Yavon, does not need to be explained. How the Hagadah story is all about light. We have a rule. Whenever Klal Yisrael go into Golos, Golos is always called darkness. Whenever HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeems us from Golos, that's always called light. Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu turned that night into day. By Purim, Ayeles Hashachar, and by Hanukkah is the most simple to understand. It's all about the light. The answer to this question is, without the build-up, which we're going to do next week, Be'ez Hashem, is that the night HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Mitzrayim was not a night. Rather, it was a day. Therefore, you can say Hallel. Therefore, you can do Bris Milah. Therefore, you can do whatever you want. Because that night is not a night. Rather, that night is a day. And it's Hashem. We'll continue next week. We might do a 3-part, then start.
You three. Okay. No problem.